Okay, and we are live. Good afternoon. This is Senate Institutions. It is January 14th. And we are all here. So we'll introduce ourselves for the record. Senator Ingalls, would you like to go first?
Yeah, Senator Russ Ingalls, Essex District.
Senator Joe Major, Windsor District.
And Senator Rob Puckett, Bennington District.
And Vice Chair, and
Senator Sam Douglas from Orleans.
thank you. And I'm Senator Wendy Harrison from Wyndham. And with us, Linda, actually, would you?
Linda Lehman, Committee Assistant.
Okay. And I think we'll let you all introduce yourself when you're in the chair. So let us do a couple of things.
Sure.
First. So we need to appoint a clerk. And what the clerk of the committee does is basically handle documents from the Senate floor to the committee room and then to the Senate office. And so would anyone like to volunteer to be the clerk? Senator Douglas, thank you very much. So we should have a motion to appoint you as the clerk. Anyone like to make that motion?
I move to make Senator Douglas the clerk of the Institutions Committee.
Thank you, Senator Major. Is there a
I
second?
second that.
And Senator Ingalls seconds. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? You are unanimously appointed. Thank you very much.
No problem. I almost voted nay. That's
No going back. So thank you very much for doing that. So what we have a abbreviated meeting time this afternoon because there's a chair and vice chair's training that starts at 2. So our goal is to adjourn 1:50, 1:55, which I think we'll be able to do. And we have 2 folks here, but before we get to the introductions, tomorrow's agenda has some time open. So if you have any suggestions at this point on topics, what we're going to do today is use last year's spreadsheet and bill as reference. You'll certainly have questions and comments, and so we can continue that tomorrow. There's what was the other thing we were thinking of? The fish hatchery we can't do until another time. And we are having 4 of our 5, I believe we have 5 attorneys in this committee. So we could possibly have an attorney. I'm comfortable just going back to the spreadsheet and getting to know that. And actually, I'd like to hear your priorities. So that could be enough for tomorrow. Okay, so
Yeah. That sounds good.
Okay, and if you think of something in the meantime, let us know because we can be very adaptable, especially this early in the process. Okay. So let us go to our witnesses who are our staff attorneys. And eventually, he's not here yet, but we'll have someone from the Joint Fiscal Office. And which of you would like to go first?
I'll go first. He's
Okay.
sending John a message. Make
Great.
sure you vote.
Thank you. And Rick, you know the drill.
Yes, good afternoon. Rick Sagal, Office of Legislative Counsel. Nice to meet most of you. I was not in this committee last session, but based on what I'm understanding with the committee changes, it looks like this committee may take on some IT, information technology issues. So my portfolio is quite varied. I handle mostly commerce related stuff. So business organizations, consumer protection, chat. I would say a title number, but that doesn't matter to you all what title I'm talking about. For this committee, the main thing is going to be information technology, possibly cybersecurity. And I think it just depends how you all handle the jurisdiction of those topics. Either it goes here, maybe in Senate Economic Development and House and General Affairs. you may have heard about data privacy, artificial intelligence, those things would fall under my purview. Easy topics, right? Madam Chair. So glad to answer questions about me. I've been here this is my second session, second year. I moved here from Texas, last October of 2023. It's colder this winter, I've noticed. Last winter I was like, this is not a big deal. This is not that cold. But then it was -5 earlier in in late December. So that was kind of cold. But yeah, enjoying Vermont, enjoying the job, and glad to answer questions or anything else you may have for me.
Yeah, that's
Does anyone have a question?
Oh, no.
No, I'm good. We're gonna have a new committee here. We're gonna have lots of stuff, and I think it always works well when everybody gets on the same page and works together, and I don't see any reason why that won't happen.
Do we want to talk a little bit about the IT and what happened, what we did last year, the bill? If something similar might come up this year?
It right depends on what kind of request comes in and how to get picked up. But my colleague John Gray, who should be here at some point, he handled the data privacy portfolio last session. So if there's questions about what happened last year, he might best be able to talk about the avenues it took. I could speak to, maybe not now, but I could speak to in general data privacy issues that may come up in this committee. But yeah, I'd be glad to help try to answer questions you may have about the issues in data privacy if you have any off the top of your head, or AI.
Okay, then I'll have please, Senator Major.
Thank you. In talking about AI, it is progressing at a rapid pace, and it is becoming very scary on several fronts. How do you see that AI in the future, and how to combat fraud and things that we only thought in the movies could happen?
Right. So if I knew, I would probably be a billionaire, right? Be able to invest in the right stocks, right? That would affect AI. It's a good question. And I think a lot of states and the federal government are grappling with this issue of, number one, what it can regulate. What can government actually do to regulate AI? What should it regulate if it can regulate something? I think what will happen when these bills come in is you have a lot of First Amendment issues when it comes to regulating speech. Like you have ChatGPT, which creates speech. ChatGPT in and of itself may not have the freedom of speech, but the people who access that application, you cannot restrict their access to certain forms of speech. So it gets interesting. As far as is there discrimination that occurs? Are there harms that occur from AI? Yes, obviously. But I think the tricky part's going to be, can you narrowly tailor something to address those harms without, blanket banning some kind of speech, some kind of service that companies are using, people are accessing, those kind of things. And what's going to be AI in a year compared to now? I don't know. But you're right, it's getting pretty impressive how well it works and how it's taking on tasks that we didn't think would be happening the same.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
So you handle bills that are associated with purchasing public price? Okay,
Right.
I have.
Okay. And my email, by the way, my email is for new members on the website. I can give it to you, but my name's kind of hard to spell. So if you just go to our Ledge Council webpage on the State House website, you'll see my name, Rick Sable, on there. You can spell it.
And it's on your agenda.
There you go. I'll save it down.
All right. Well, thank you, Rick.
Oh yeah, thank you. Nice meeting you all. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard it talk enough. So.
That's right.
Everyone. My name is Ben Novogrowski. I'm an attorney at the Office of Legislative Counsel. I have met you before, Madam Chair, and you, Senator Ingalls, and Senator Douglas via Zoom. We've had a chat, and pleasure to meet you, Senator Major, and Senator Plunkett for the first time. So My portfolio, I am one of the 3 members of the judiciary team. And within that portfolio, we handle all criminal matters, and I specifically handle things regarding law enforcement and constitutional issues regarding law enforcement. So for instance, qualified immunity, use of force application, things of that nature. I handle bail. There was a lot of bail reform that occurred last year in this body. I also handle restorative justice, so things about touching on diversion and community-based providers, providing services for substance use treatment, rehabilitation, repair to the community, and then correctional policy. And in the House, it's a little bit different than the Senate. House Corrections and Institutions handles everything. And then Senate Judiciary and Senate Institutions kind of split correctional policy to a degree. My understanding, after talking to Secretary Bloomer, because the history of this is a little interesting. I think the kind of the jurisdiction evolved because of the late Senator Dick Sears had some potential, he had a correctional background, had an affinity for corrections issues. And so I think unofficially at first, things went to Senate Judiciary. And now, since there's a changing of the guard, there might be a reshuffling to a degree. And my understanding is more sort of administrative correctional policy will probably live here, and then more criminal and correctional policy where they blend will go to judiciary, since there'll be more of a nexus to the criminal justice system.
Claire Ingalls.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to add to that, I think that it all got started when past Chair Joe Benning decided that he didn't want to handle that part of that. Somehow, because he was an attorney, he believed that he had a conflict. And so he willingly put that over there, in fact, refused to have it come into this committee, which I wished I would have learned a lot earlier than what I did learn. Because as talking to Secretary Bloomer, most of all of that should probably stay in this committee.
Right. And so, yeah, as you can tell, I mean, and Secretary Bloomer is really the keeper of a lot of this history as well. And so, yeah, with new people and new times come new jurisdictions, or rather, revival of old jurisdiction, if you will. So that's my policy portfolio in a very general way. As far as by way of background, I grew up here in Vermont. I graduated from Stowe High School. I currently reside in Richmond, Vermont, with my wife and 4 kids. So my house is dull, quiet, very peaceful.
Everyone does their jobs.
Oh yeah, everyone's great at listening. And they run the gamut from 11, 9, 3 to 20 months. 3 oldest are girls, and the boys, the caboose, and we're done. But previously I went out of state for college. I came back for a few years. I worked in the local school system as a paraeducator before going back to law school, which was in Albany, New York. Kind of next to Washington, D.C. It's really the second largest market for government, if you will. And I was there for 3 years, and then right out of law school, I worked for a small boutique litigation firm in Stowe, doing mostly plaintiff's work, but really complex litigation, and then also doing some criminal defense, which was mostly involving DUIs, to help out my friends. And then after 5 years there, I jumped over to the Office of Professional Regulation as a prosecuting attorney. And what OPR does is essentially enforce licensing violations for anyone from nurses, barbers, engineers, across the gamut. So not criminal or civil, some civil penalties, but really administrative penalties involving people's licenses. And then this is now my 4th session here. And I took over for Bryn Hare, who's now our executive director, when she went to the Cannabis Control Board as their director. And now she's back this year. And I'm still here, so she didn't come back to her old role. But, you know, I really enjoy this job. This is something that, I've always been interested ever since I was young in policy and helping to shape it. And it's really, an honor and privilege to work with you all as you do the people's work and to help be sort of the instrument of that. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I guess I should say that my mantra and my approach to work is, I take what I do seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously. And so I always try to bring a little levity and humor when appropriate to the community, because sometimes it can be some dogged work and some late nights and long hours. And, you know, if we can have a little levity, I'm happy to bring it when it's needed. So, and with that, I'll take any questions.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, questions?
Any questions?
I just want to, oh, I'm sorry, just how important your role is and all of Ledge Council. It's so critical to us, and it's, I think it's the way that we do it with Ledge Council of both the House and the Senate. Maybe they do that in other states too, but I wasn't familiar with that. I think it's extremely helpful because we have a very limited amount of time to get things done. And we want to get them done well. And when Ledge Council is the council for both the Senate and the House, but with privacy in there, it's very impactful.
And that's really astute. I mean, so when I was in law school in New York, I interned in the Legislative Council in the New York State Assembly, and they have a different structure. They're still Legislative Council, but we kind of do everything that are spread amongst different offices in New York. So they have a separate bill drafting office. We draft the bills. They have each staff, legislator there typically have their own staff members. And a lot of times they'll start writing legislation, then pass it on to the bill drafters and go through the process. And then there's legislative council as well. But in that body, there are 2 offices per chamber, and they're partisan offices. There's minority and majority counsel for both the Senate and the Assembly. Unlike us, where, as you said, we are here to serve everyone on a nonpartisan level, and we shepherd the bills throughout the whole process instead of handing them off to counterparts. So it does provide, I think we can be a resource of context and of continuity for the bill as it progresses. Obviously I will never provide my own opinion, but I will provide and help relay testimony that has been spoken about in prior committees to help inform you. And if I can't, or I can't recall at the time, I'll do my best to either get the information or put you in contact with the right people that have it.
That's great. So now, sorry, I'm in charge of myself. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I do now have.
Okay, perfect.
So this is just about legislative council. I could ask you, not in committee, but
Sure.
Do you all have something of a style manual or
We do.
bill drafting? Okay, and is that shared with the legislatures or is that kept?
It's a little, it's kind of kept.
Okay.
We have our own style conventions. I mean, you'll kind of notice them as you read through bills. We have a certain way of phrasing things, certain formatting. But that is a little esoteric.
But not for me. I'm an attorney, which is part of the reason why I.
So you know.
So okay, that's just curious
Yeah.
about that.
And
I'll be coming over to visit sometime to see what you guys actually do.
yeah, and most of us are in 2 Aiken,
Right,
but
you're in the Pink Lady.
Pink Lady,
with,
Eric and Michelle. So the judiciary team is
Yeah.
up on the very top floor. So, you'll get your steps in if you come in and walk up to us.
Can you put on the record why you are segregated from the rest of your?
I mean, to be blunt, is because human resources is still in 2 Aiken and they ran out of room for us. And, there's a little bit of bitterness here, but Eric, is the only attorney that didn't have to move because he was already at the top of the Pink Lady. So everyone else moved except for Eric. So we went to him up there. And I think the conventional wisdom is that we may end up moving. So everybody is in 2 Aiken with the next couple of years, but that's what my big grant.
And actually,
That might be
That-
institutions first.
that's, I was gonna say, that's in our jurisdiction,
Yeah.
is building renovations and how buildings are used, and this one, in fact.
So yeah, I'll make a plug for Ledge Council. Look out for us.
So I do have just a general question for you, because what we're going to do, to the extent that we have time, is go over the spreadsheet, which I don't expect you to give us advice on that, but last year's bill, is there anything particularly interesting in it?
So as far as the capital bill?
Yes,
So the capital bill is John Gray.
okay.
but
I don't think
I-
that was much, correct?
And who's not here yet? I mean, yeah, really the thing involving corrections that I'm aware of is, I think that there was appropriation for a women's facility and reentry work. And Sarah Ingalls, you probably can shed a little bit more light on that than I can at this moment, because I'm just going from adjacent memory, you know?
Okay.
Me too.
But I can probably speak a little bit about the corrections miscellaneous bill, if you're interested in that.
Oh, we don't have it in front of us.
Yeah, so it was H
So-
876 of last year, and I believe it was enacted as Act 159. I'm actually doing a walkthrough of it tomorrow afternoon, for Representative Emmons and her committee.
Okay,
So if that's something that you'd be interested in at some point, I could do the same.
okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
But a very high level, sort of, I would say that the big takeaway from that bill was, codifying reentry medication, the provision of reentry medication. So for those that are preparing to be released from a facility, to ensure that any medication that they're receiving, can continue, so it's uninterrupted as they enter, because there was a lot of testimony about how it gets interrupted. There's a Medicaid waiver that's in process right now. It's called the 1115 waiver that would allow Medicaid, people incarcerated to access Medicaid, because right now, if you are incarcerated, you cannot access Medicaid. So there's a waiver that's in process that DEVA is currently pursuing to allow that, but also there were provisions set up to provide non-driver identification cards for offenders that are about to be released, so that they could then have an ID to present in the community to redeem prescriptions. They will be given a limited supply of prescriptions upon release, in addition to a prescription to redeem, sort of a bridge prescription before they can see a provider, so that they would have their medication for some time upon release. And then also some work to help coordinate care and medical appointments, at least the first one, through the Department of Corrections, prior to release. So I would say that was probably the biggest
okay,
change that came out of the bill, but then there are some others.
okay, all right, that's helpful.
Did you say what DEVA was?
It's the Department for Vermont Health Access.
And it's,
It's the alphabet soup, right?
right, and it's one of the 4 or 5 departments of, AHS, the Agency of Human
Yes,
Services.
of which DOC is also a part. So yeah, there's a lot of, it's a good thing that AHS is sort of the umbrella organization, because there's a lot of work that all of those different departments do with each other. And I should say that, another instance of interagency collaboration is that this ID program was actually a contract between the DMV and DOC that was in place for years. And we essentially just codified the contract to ensure, and those are IDs that are provided free of charge. If they want to get their actual driver's license and pay those fees, that is the prerogative of the individual, but the non-driver ID is provided free of charge to them.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? We'll have a million. for you.
I'm sure. I'm gonna say this is like the light one. From here on out, it's all downhill or uphill depending on your
Yeah,
perspective.
I would say fun.
Fun, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much
My pleasure.
for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, and I only have 3 cards. So maybe for the 3 new members of the committee,
That's a good.
if you're interested, my phone number and my email address, feel free to send it my way.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with all of you this year.
You as
Thanks,
well.
Ben.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And I didn't bring anything, so.
Don't steal someone else. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
John Gray was tentative. He is in another committee. And he'll come here as soon as he gets out of that.
Okay,
And the same with Scott,
oh, is Scott a possibility, not a,
1:30.
but he will be here. at
Either
1:30.
technically here.
Okay, okay, good. Well, that was very helpful. Of Ben. So I don't know if it would be helpful at this time to go through the bill from last year, but
Can I
I,
explain it, Madam Chair, a little bit? Would it help if I just kind of a couple lines on it? Because they're not seeing what they're going to see. They're seeing the
Right.
finished product.
right. Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're normally gonna see when this bill comes over, it starts from the governor. The governor's the one that does it. So you're gonna see the governor's recommend. And then you're gonna see 26 and you're gonna see 27. And what we're gonna be focused on as much as anything is the 26 portion of it, because this is a 2-year bill. And so, and I don't want to take from the chair, so you're gonna see those 3 columns. Right now, you're seeing what we actually did as a committee on the 2 years of last year. We don't see the governor's recommend anymore because you see Act 69, which was 2 years ago bill, and you see Act 162, which was last year's bill. So, the first year's bill, we go down through and we, again, it's plug and play. You take money from here, you're gonna balance it. You typically don't get any more money to make it happen. You balance it out. There's no more money. Okay, we need another $50,000. Or $500,000. So we gotta send Madam Chair around to chasing it around and going to find it someplace. So if you take from one, you're plugging, you're making it balance. You're doing that. The second part of the bill, as like the blue part of it, that was the truing up. And even though this year we're gonna see what we're gonna be expecting, we're gonna see a balance of what, the carryover funds will be. But there's sometimes you end up spending more money in the first year of the biennium. And so you're taking it from the second year. So again, that needs to balance up. That all needs to go in that way. And so, I'm gonna stop there. Other than I'm gonna say this. Every bit of what you see on there, you're gonna have to know something about, because there's something called reporting the bill on the floor. And what we've done in the past, what was before me, and Madam Chair will make that decision about how it happens, what it is. That is absolutely positively gonna be her discretion about what it is, but you're gonna have assigned sections of this bill. If you get on that floor and these questions start to get asked, you need to know what's going on. You really need to know about it, and you need to know a little bit about all of it, because people are going to ask you questions along the way. The last little bit, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And I had talked to Senator Major about this. I've been on a committee where we weren't prepared on that floor. It's not a lot of fun. And it took away from a lot of great work that we did in the committee, and we got through it, and it's just not a lot of fun. It's just not a lot of fun. It's embarrassing. It takes away from all the great work that we do. And I know Madam Chair will not let that happen to us. I know that she'll have us prepared, and that she'll bring in the right people and all of that, so that when we go up there, we all have each other's backs, and we'll be able to get this reported well.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So let me start.
Pressure.
Oh, it's all.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, every committee wants to do a good job.
Well, this one's a harder one than most of them.
Well, it's really diverse, and it deals with so many different parts of the state, which I think is interesting and helpful and fun, actually.
Yeah.
So the way our process works is, first, there's a committee that looks at what the appropriate amount for the state to borrow is. And they set a recommendation. It was 108 million last year. It's going to be a little bit less this year. And we typically stay at that level. amount, because there are a lot of reasons to do that. And Mike Pichuk is the chair of that committee, and he'll come and he'll explain how the committee makes its decisions. And then that is the amount of money that we have to recommend. As Senator Ingalls said, the House has the first track at the Capitol bill, at all of the spending bills. And then once they finish their work, then we get the bill, and then we work with them at the end to come to a compromise. And then hopefully it's approved by both of the chambers and the governor. So Scott is going to go. Scott is our joint fiscal office person, Scott Moore. He came into the committee near the end of last year, and he'll go through the spreadsheet. But we can even just start to just get a handle on just the topics that we're going to see. The Agency of Administration has one of their divisions is Buildings and General Services, so that's who we call BGS. And those are the folks who are in charge of the buildings, like the courthouses. Many of the courthouses were just renovated. They come in and they take care of that. And we do probably the agency, the division who's most in this committee is BGS. So they're with us a lot. They have a new commissioner this year. We'll meet her. She coming tomorrow? She's coming tomorrow. And so this first section 2.
Oh, excuse me, Thursday.
Okay, day after tomorrow. Those are the last 2 years projects. There's always something more that needs to be done, obviously. So we'll hear from the courts. COVID caused all sorts of issues. Then we had the flooding, which 2 years in a row, but the one in Montpelier a year and a half ago was just horrendous. And so the State House wasn't flooded, but most of the buildings around were. And so there were huge costs. It was by and large reimbursed from FEMA, so that was helpful, but they certainly got them off of their work product. So BGS is really important to us, all of them, right? Agency of Human Services, now that's DOC, that's a Department of Corrections. The biggest thing happening there from a building standpoint is the women's prison, and you may be probably aware of it, Senator Plunkett, just from your work.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's an awful place to be, honestly, and it's not restorative. And there's a full agreement that it needs to be replaced. And there's been a lot of work on what type of prison it should be. And we had many conversations about the prisons in Maine, the state of Maine as a good model. They have women's prison and men's prisons that are built with restorative justice, they're not scary places intentionally. They have bright colors.
Is that the recidivism is like 0.
The recidivism is very low, and that a lot of that is because of the reentry facility. Trauma informed. They're trauma informed, and it makes a difference because a huge amount of the folks who are in those prisons are have mental illness challenges. So it's the prisons need some sort of therapeutic quality if we want to have folks come out able to be functional members of society and their families. I mean, it's just important to the families and the individuals. So that model is one that we definitely need to talk about and continue to measure the designs based on that model. A few of us went to the Prison in Maine, a couple years ago, and we could probably do that again. We had a lot of testimony, from the, person who runs that facility. Turns out it's actually less expensive too than our facilities. So the operating costs are lower. So that'll be something that I'm going to ask, for her information and just the updates.
One of the things that we do here in Vermont is as far as juveniles, we ship them to other states. And because I'm a freshman senator, I'm not. It's more cost effective to do that than to keep them in, because the price tag for the individual is 6 figures.
Yeah.
Per year.
My understanding is that's a scarcity issue. We don't have those facilities.
Yeah, that's a major, I think is the issue, the real issue is we have no place to put them.
Yeah.
Essentially closed Woodside. And then they were gonna have a place that was immediately, and we have just never done that. Now, we've made some gains last year, we've made some gains last year, which we'll get a chance to go through this bill. They're still sitting out there. There's still decisions being made, but I think that is one of the, I'm glad to hear, the chair, talk about that she wants to claw some of that stuff back, because we could really make some impactful decisions as far as how corrections is done in a good way.
And I guess that's the point in what you said earlier about reoffenses being 0. And when we ship them out, we don't know how that other state is necessarily doing.
I think it's where you lose it, where you lose control of all things, is that it isn't your process.
Yes.
And so that if we can make it work here, we can make it our process. And I think that we're just getting there now. As Madam Chair has spoke about, that main model. We're trying to integrate it in here. We worked hard on that last year, to try to get that not only the building part of it, but the thought process, as far as to get it to where it isn't punitive and punishment, it's restorative. And you think that you could turn that ship around real fast, but you can't. And we made great strides last year, and it'd be a crying shame for us not to
go forward, but your experience will be very helpful, and
Yeah,
it's
both of you.
terrific that you're here.
And then, I don't know if it makes economic sense, much less what we want for the juvenile individuals and trying to make them productive members of our society.
Right. I don't think the state has not made a determination that it's the best way to handle things economically. And I only hear negative comment or negative issues.
I think the sense of the past was to make it an economic issue more with the men than it was anything, because they could ship them to out-of-state facilities for a third of the cost. But that process has been changed in this building. As far as, well, we're not going to make it about, it's always about money, right?
Sure.
But we have made great strides not to make it about money, is to not only get control of those costs, but to find ways to bring those people back into society and make them productive again, not just to punish the hell out of them while they're behind the bars.
Right, and I meant the juveniles specifically,
Right.
not the.
Right.
But let's go to Scott Moore, since he is here, and we just have about 15 minutes. And thank you so much for being
Good
here.
afternoon, members of the committee. My apologies for being late. As you might know, welcome to the committee. So where to begin? With 15 minutes, I don't want to dive too much into the spreadsheet that I prepared, because it takes a little bit longer than that. I don't want to rush things too much, but we recommend Scott Moore work for the Joint Fiscal Committee. My job to support this committee is really the spreadsheets in front of you. So, Village Council, who last year was Damian Leonard, this year I believe will be John Gray, will prepare the words for the packet that you have. I'll take those words and put them on the spreadsheet. So I'll track all these numbers as we go through the conversation. So at a very, very high level, knowing I have 10 minutes. The process basically will be that the capital bill is a 2-year bill. So the governor will give us a spreadsheet of their recommendations in a couple of weeks. I forget exactly the date, but toward the end of January. And their spreadsheet is going to look a lot like this, but this is the final from last year. So this is the final spreadsheet from the past biennium. So the governor recommended we'll basically have one set of columns. Here is the program, here's the number the governor recommends. Then the spreadsheet's going to go through the House, and then the House will say, oh, I see line 1, I agree with that governor recommend, I don't agree with the governor recommend, we're going to make changes. So you're going to see another set of columns for all the House changes. Then we're going to bring it here. And then we'll have, yes, a third set of columns for the Senate changes. Then we might even have a fourth set for compromising we might have to do. So quickly, I can just walk through a little bit of this with you. The very first column is the line number, so I can speak to this. I can say, oh, let's take a look at line 2, and we can follow through as we go. Columns B and C, these are the section numbers from the actual words that you have. And the very first column B, is from the bill as it was first proposed. Let's see, we are in FY25, so FY23. And then in column C are the sections from FY24. Column B, these are the actual agencies and the actual programs that they want to talk about. Sometimes it's shorthand. So if you see something like instead of statewide major maintenance annual appropriation, what does that mean? So BGS would come in and the commission would speak to what kind of projects they happen to be having. I believe the state owns 240 some odd buildings. Don't quote me on that exact number. But everyone they have to go through and do maintenance for Bennington Battle Monument, correction centers, that kind of stuff. So that's what column B is. It just lists all the different departments. Column E, F, and G in this particular case happened to be the final version of Act 69, which was the capital bill the first year. And then H, I, and J is what we ended up doing last year. So one thing I would like to call attention to, if you happen to look, let's look at line 1. It's section 2, agency administration. It's a little bit weird for the spreadsheet to start in section 2, but it's section 2 of the bill. The bill itself, section 1 is just the introduction of what the bill is all about. So line 1, we see statewide major maintenance annual appropriation. Column E, we have $80,001,244 in FY24, and FY25 $8.5 million for a total of $501,244. So essentially, the first year biennium they recommended about $8 million. The second year biennium $8.5 million for that total. And then as we went along, last year we said, okay, we concur with FY24, no changes. So that same number in column H, 8,001,244. We will notice FY25, the number is a little bit different.
In addition to
What happened was we found an extra $2,000 as we scoured things, and that's kind of where we put it. It's a little bit of a general fund because maintenance is always, you always need to have people trying to do things. So that's why that number changed. Also, if you happen to look at, I have another example here. If we look over at row 7, Superior State House replacement for furnishes. In column E, there's $50,000. In column F, there's $50,000. So Act 69 is a total of $100,000 in the bill. Well, last year we said we had the agency come in, talk about what they had done with the money and had the youth that had not used it, what's going on with it. And then the committee felt that they still had money left over from previous years. Therefore, we changed the bill to take the $100,000 away from that particular line item and we moved it somewhere else in the bill. Where it went exactly, I don't have to remember, but I can find it.
Remember the plug and play? So we took it from there? Cause Madam Chair wanted it someplace else.
So if you see differences in columns, that's mostly what happened, is we decided that we're gonna, hey, this is a program we really believe in. We have an extra $1 million, let's add that $1 million to that particular line item. So we see differences there, that's what's going on. Keeping in mind your time, so section 2 is agency administration, section 3 is agency human services. If you turn the page, section 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm not sure that we made very many changes, quite frankly. There might be 1 or 2 in there, but you can see as we go along, it is really what will happen with every group will come in and make the case. We feel we should have $1 million, and then the committee decides if they should have $1 million or $500,000 or $2 million. They'll make that justification for them. Flipping over to the next page. Section 10, so looking at line 79 is what it's section starts. The clean water is a little bit different. So with clean water, what happens is the first year of the biennium, we allocated about $10 million across 5 or 6 different categories. And then for FY25, they made a bucket of $6 million. So remember, this is the first year of the biennium in this gray columns. So that first year of the biennium, they're like, well, we don't really know what we're going to do at FY25 because the different buckets might change. You'll notice that in the blue columns, that $6 million gets delineated across different things. So this is a little bit different. Same idea. We had a bucket, we moved the bucket around, the center grid, once I mentioned, plug and play. So we kind of move things a little bit. At the very bottom of this page, we'll see the total capital projects in FY24, 86 million. FY25, 74 million for a total of 130 million, basically in capital projects. Now, these are all bonded dollars. This take these out and issues bonds. The bonded money is what is spent here. I apologize for them a little bit quickly, but trying to be conscious of the time. The next section is the reallocation and transfers. So this section is a little bit different. What happens here is we look at any allocation that we've given to people that is 2 years full or full. And we say, hey, did you use all that money? Can we have something to back? What's going on with it? We plan on using it tomorrow. What's the deal? They kind of scrape the bucket, if you will, to get all the extra money. So remember earlier, we looked at line 2, we had an extra $1,999. This is kind of where it came from. So in parts.
And the House will have their own subcommittee that will go and do that. They will actually do a subcommittee and they will scrub those dollars. So a lot of that stuff is already done for us.
Yeah. So last year, I think we found over $2.5 million, give or take, and we were able to find across different things. So that's kind of what this is, and that looks a little bit different. So if we happen to go look at originally, I think last year, the total was $108 million allocated to the capital bill, but then we ended up having like 110 million, well, extra 2 million was down. So that's how that actually happens.
I don't know if it's on this bill, but have we gone through all the cash of it for two, so not last year, but not the last 2 years, but the first, we actually had where the governor was putting cash in. And that was coming to play on this as well. And so, okay, sorry.
So if we look at the next page, section 17, this is the money that we're given, right? So if you look at line 174, $108 million was what was first recommended. And then we have to look at the total general obligation funds available was 122. The extra $14 million come through the page before all the scrubbing that was done. So we ended up in 2024 finding $14 million extra from that scrubbing. That's why I went from 108 million to 122 million. Same thing with FY25. They had to make the money there. So when the bill was first created, the numbers might change because we may be able to find some more money.
Now, let me ask you a question, Scott. So when we go look for that unfunded or unspent, we do that in the second year, not the first year.
We can go through and look for this year as well, because we're going to look at anything that's older than 2 fiscal years. So this is fiscal year FY 25. I'm also working on the FY 26 budget, and I'm not sure what day it is because of that. So current FY 26 budget, FY 25 cycle, so anything older than FY 23 will go in the House and try to start checking. Now, the governor will want them to do that as well. To go through and say, hey, everybody, did you use the money? What's going on?
Right.
And so the governor rec will probably have dollars in there for the recommendations. He would have talked to the different agencies and said, well,
Okay,
so
thank you.
the very last section here, and I'll make this a little bit quicker. This is the cash fund. So the cash fund is its own beast in and of itself. Long story short and quickly, essentially the government can allocate money to be given to the capital build in the form of cash. The idea being that there are some things that you don't want to spend bonded money on and pay interest, right? So as an example, very layman's term example, if you have an architect, you want to hire him to go out and survey the grounds to see if the building is even possible. Do you want to pay that with bonded dollars or cash? So the concept of the cash fund, in essence, is let's fund some of these different issues with cash instead of bonded dollars, and not pay interest on it. And some things are not allowed to be in the cash fund because they have to be bonded dollars, like your capital assets. And some of these things in here, I'm trying to think of a good example of things that may have changed as we did things last year. The one thing I would point out about the cash fund is that it's entirely possible some of the different issues here in the cash fund are the same projects up above in the bonded section. For example, I don't have that on my head, but let's just use like a fish hatchery, right? Because I remember fish hatcheries, we got to go on a tour to Salisbury this summer. If I won the tour, it was fun. So the fish hatchery might have a bonded section because of replacing things and a cash section because they're going to be hiring an architect to plan things. So when we think about the total allocation of dollars across the different projects, sometimes you'll have a bonded and a cash. Last year in the House, Madam Chair asked me to do was take everything from the cash section below, we'll roll it up into the bonded so we can see a total dollar amount. So instead of saying 2 million here, 1 million there, 3 million every which way, I put them together so you kind of had a better idea of how much money you had for the entirety of that big project.
And that was the other manager,
The other Madam Chair, yes.
right?
So that's the capital bill in 10 minutes.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
If you have questions, I'm happy to sit with you and we can talk through or whatever, but I wanted to just give that 30,000 foot level.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll probably take it.
It's very helpful.
I'm happy to. If anybody-
Yeah, we'll be seeing you many times.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we will.
we rely on you.
We'll be
Thank
living,
you for your
we'll
good
be
work.
living in the same household.
And as a general rule, I always carry extra copies of capital bill with me, so if you lose your sheet, don't worry.
That's great.
And unlike, in our other role, you can use your drawer.
Yeah.
All right,
Any questions for me at the moment? Otherwise.
I think we're good. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, very much.
And if no one else has any